Inside the bar, the boss poured whiskey into a glass while talking on the phone, ordering him to throw a cloth over Na-Soo and drag her inside, mocking her as he asked if she thought this was some kind of fashion show, sneering about putting this or that on her, and questioning who even cared about what she was wearing. At that moment, someone knocked on the door, and Na-Soo was shoved inside. As soon as she entered, one of the men commented that she had finally arrived, while another man who was smoking let his gaze slide over her body, saying they had said she was ordinary, but that she looked prettier than he had expected. He laughed at himself and told her to sit beside him. While Na-Soo tried to cover herself and breathe, slowly the boss ordered another man to sit next to her, calling the first one disgusting. Na-Soo thought that under those sticky gazes, she seemed to be getting torn apart little by little. One of the men called to her again, telling her to come closer and sit down. When the voice echoed, Na-Soo remembered the words a girl had said before warning her to do exactly what they told her and behave properly, or everyone would end up in trouble because of her. Thinking about that, Na-Soo began to walk forward without even realizing it. When the man reached out and pulled her closer, he called her obedient, held her shoulder, and asked how she had ended up in a place like that. He wanted to know who she had offended so badly for this to happen. He said that since everything had reached that point, she should share a secret, claiming they were working themselves to death without even knowing who had ordered all this. Another man joined the conversation, suggesting that maybe she had displeased the madam. He asked if she had been a lover or if the young master's family had forced a breakup, and she had refused because she loved him. Someone laughed and asked the boss if he had been watching too many dramas, joking about what year they were even in. The boss cursed under his breath, saying the world was still that miserable place where money bought everything. Na-Soo whispered to herself that she did not want this, repeating the words in a low voice, as if hoping they could change something. The man beside her noticed and looked at her, asking what exactly it was that she did not want. He commented that if she truly did not want it, she could try to run, and then asked if she knew what would happen if she were caught. Another man asked why he was, frightening her, saying Na-Soo looked about to cry and telling him to take it easy. The man replied that even though they were only following orders, he still felt uncomfortable with it. Then he placed a glass in Na-Soo's hand and suggested they drink. He noticed her stiff posture and asked why she looked so frozen, telling her to serve the drink. At that moment, Na-Soo remembered an episode from the past when a customer had shouted asking if she was deaf while ordering her to serve the drink. He had complained that if that was her job, she could not even do the basics. In that memory, Na-Soo had forced herself to raise her voice and apologize, saying she could not comply with that request and asking him to stop. She also remembered how the owners had seemed satisfied with the scene and how one of them had approached and hugged her, commenting on how comforting it was. Na-Soo had remained silent, holding everything inside herself as she always did, and had felt glad when the owner remarked that she seemed colder lately and repeated that she should say what she thought. That memory brought another to her mind of Taiha, telling her to say exactly what she thought and even get angry when necessary. Na-Soo had asked how she could do that when the person involved was a customer, and Taiha had joked that maybe she should discipline the customer for her. Na-Soo remembered silencing him with just one look, saying she could not simply get herself into trouble so easily, and Taiha had laughed. At that, he had said that now Na-Soo could do whatever she wanted since there was no longer anyone she needed to be responsible for, and no one left who could be hurt. When Na-Soo remembered Mike-Yo's name written on the wall, her thoughts turned into a silent prayer, wishing that name would be erased, and that the space would be filled with words about herself and no longer about him. Taiha had reminded her to put herself first, at least once try and make her focus on her own feelings. Taiha's earlier words echoed in her mind, telling her to think only about herself and do whatever she wanted as long as it was something she truly desired. While Na-Soo remained there lost in thought, the man asked why she was only looking around and wanted to know if she intended to serve the drink or not. In response, Na-Soo pushed his hand away and told him to serve himself. The man looked surprised and asked what she had just said, and Na-Soo repeated calmly, saying that she had asked him to serve it on his own. She questioned whether he did not have hands to do that. Her tone remained firm even as the room reacted. The scene then shifted outside, where Taiha had already dealt with the guards, piling them up one by one like lifeless bodies. As he moved deeper inside, he realized the place was much larger and more open than it seemed from the outside, with confusing layout, almost like a maze, and the feeling that there were several floors hidden underground. As he went on, a girl's voice called out to him, asking who he was, saying she had never seen him before, and questioning if he was new. When she noticed the blood on Taiha's hand, she smiled as if she understood everything and commented that he must be the rookie everyone had been talking about. She asked what he was staring at and said it was obvious that the guys from his organization were all idiots since they always got lost when they came there. She told him to follow her, and Taiha obeyed, biting his glove as he walked behind her in silence. Back in the room, Na-Soo stared directly at the man in front of her, and the henchman burst into laughter, calling it a good show. They began to mock him, repeating her words and making fun of him for being asked if he had hands. The man grew irritated and ordered Na-Soo to stop acting difficult, warning that it would become boring very quickly if she continued. He grabbed her, roughly cursing under his breath, and accused Na-Su of thinking too highly of herself just because people said she was pretty. The man questioned whether Na-Su truly believed she could treat him like he was nothing just because of that. He leaned in closer, saying that she was beautiful and that everyone seemed obsessed with her. He claimed she had become arrogant and had lost her fear without even understanding what she truly should be afraid of. He said she would soon find out. As he spoke, he grabbed her leg and pressed his body against hers. Na-Su felt a sudden pain when her hands were restrained, and in that instant she made a silent prayer for Taiha. She realized how much she missed him. Memories of his touch surged strongly, and then she understood something she had never fully admitted. Even without ever saying out loud, his embraces had always been gentle. When Taiha held her, when his large hands slowly slid along her back, there had never been any pain. Now, trapped in those rough hands, Na-Su finally understood how careful Taiha had always been with her. Tears filled her eyes when the comparison became impossible to ignore. The man noticed her crying and laughed, commenting that for someone who acted with such pride, she cried far too easily. The heavy and filthy laughter lingered in the room. Suddenly, a violent crash shattered the moment when the door was struck with force, and the sound echoed through the room, cutting the laughter in midair. A henchman shouted, demanding to know who was there, while another voice joined in questioning who the intruder was. A massive shadow appeared at the entrance, spreading across the floor of the room. Na-Su tried to clutch her clothes in haste with trembling hands as she struggled to cover herself. She raised her face, trying desperately to see who had arrived, and the tears streamed uncontrollably as she stared at the door.